welcome to our growth story. And I'm talking with Paul Wareham. Now, Paul has been a member of the club since 2000, and we've been working together now for 6-7 years. And when we both started working together, I had brown hair, and you might have even had a little bit more hair and less grey hair. This is what happens. Yes, yes. And we both of us only had one pair of glasses, not two. But, you've had an interesting journey as a practice owner. When you first came back to the UK after a stint in Dubai, you took a franchise to get started, then sold the franchise. So we spoke a number of years ago. So what happened since we last spoke?
Quite a lot. COVID, hyperinflation, struggling to get staff. So the first thing that hit me was long COVID. I seem to get it every time it goes round. Absolutely floored me each time it comes round. And the second time out of 4 I had it, put me in A&E for the day with a suspected stroke heart attack. It was a real eye-opener, to say that.
But I think that's probably was a turning point, wasn't it? Because number one, I got to speak to your wife, which we always talk about failure as a learning point. I think you've now resolved to make sure that Sue and I never talk again because it's always bad for you. So I got to talk to you your wife at that point. But we talk about long COVID and we just kind of mention long COVID. I have chronic fatigue as a fibro sufferer, but what actually did long COVID mean for you?
Since joining the club, it was all grow, profitably as well. We don't just chase turnover. That's pointless. And it was just all about me. Although the team was in place, and COVID was fantastic because it pushed me down going the outsourcing route. You and the club had been there, done it, so instrumental with that. Probably wouldn't have a practice this size if we didn't have that in place. And it takes me out of the game for 3 days, can't concentrate, don't care, just want to sleep. No emotion whatsoever, just want to sit, watch movies, drinking red wine. That can start at 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning, eating crisps. COVID is nice and terrible at the same time. When you're in it, you don't care. But when you come out, you've got a lot of work to do.
And it's really interesting that you now brush over the fact that long COVID for you was, as you talked about it, you couldn't do those long bike rides anymore. As you said, you'd lost a gear. You couldn't red line it anymore, whether it was your, jiu-jitsu or whatever. And if you overdid it, that would be you wiped out again. I've now discovered that's post-exercise malaise, by the way. And I remember you saying, I can't work more than 4 to 5 hours a day now. The days that I could do the 10 hours, 5 days a week, a bit of stuff at the weekend are just gone. How long did that period of long COVID last? Is it like every time you get COVID, or was it just that one really bad time?
No, it's every time I get COVID. And I'd say, so when did that start? So March 20. So the first bad bout of COVID was Christmas 20. So from then, brain fog probably went about April, May this year. I just could not recover. I could not recover and get back to.
So that's literally 4 years of brain fog. And for any of those that haven't had brain fog, as a perimenopausal woman who has fibro, I have double helpings of this. It's little things like I was sitting there in a meeting with Matt, someone I worked for the 2 years, I can't remember, he was called Michael, whether he was Mark, and it's not just those comical name moments, is it? It's concentration, it's distraction. It's literally you get to the end of the day, and that end of the day may be 2:30 in the afternoon. You just want to sleep, don't you, with that sort of level of brain fog?
Yeah. And it's dead frustrating, isn't it? Because as an AI comes in and automation, we're experts at what we do. And it's really frustrating to be in a meeting and not be able to recall data from an information you sat and studied years and years for to be the best professional you can be. Yeah, it's mega frustrating.
Yeah, so it all came to a head, didn't you? You had 2 team members going on maternity. You were still in long COVID, still really couldn't work more than 5 hours a day. You were struggling to recruit your replacements because of the fact your office was 40 miles in the wrong direction. That was 80 miles a day. There needed to be someone in the office, particularly when the apprentices were there. Your revenue was 390. Your profitability was, shall we just say, top of the pack, as you always aim to be. What made you hit the nuclear button?
We had to do it. We had to do something. So just before that, we got, what have I been through? 4 maternity covers in 4 years, and each one floors you as a small business. And then we just get everybody back. So we are just singing from the same hip sheet, 9 people in the office, 2 to 3 outsourced, tax consultant I can call on, revenue's never been higher, profit's never been higher. And then within the space of 3 weeks, my number 2 and number 3 say, we're going on maternity. Of course we're having the 9 months. One of them didn't get their full 9, well, they did get the full 9 months, but it was during a lockdown. So she didn't get the special 9 months. And yeah, I looked around, I looked at the rest of the team who were juniors, apart from one AAT. You cannot cover the maternity cover. You can cover your number 2 practice manager, 12 years experience with your biggest production engine, also going on maternity, 5 years experience, best bookkeeper. But you'll cover it because that's what you do. So yeah, it was Sue that sat me down and opened a bottle of champagne. And she said, that's fantastic. You'll move in the office.
I love the fact that, and it's really interesting. It often we've got to go to the point, look at the abyss, realize that it's going to break us irrevocably. Because we've got to remember that you were only working 5-hour days. You'd been told by me and Sue that you can't push it anymore. And then you find that you're going for that 500,000. Yeah, we can do it. Da, 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 da. And then suddenly, bosh, the abyss is in front of you. Your wife sits you down and goes, you're moving office.
Yeah.
So what did actually moving office mean for you? Was it just round the corner?
Yep. So we moved it 21 miles. We were quite embedded in the local town. So the first thing we did was, analysis of what might lose. And we were quite happy to lose 25%. So we lose 25%, cope with that. We then looked at the team members, 3 of which were on buses to get there. So then moving 21 miles south was a non-starter. So straight away we're into redundancies. In the meantime, I've got to try and find outsourcers that are going to cover the bookkeeping of our biggest production engine. Realistically, from what I've seen in the marketplace, 1.2, 1.3 times of a normal bookkeeper. You've got to get them up to speed on how they use our systems, get used to our clients, how they operate. Clients want to be spoken to from a cultural relationship marketing perspective. I've then got a building I need to sell because we own the building. You've got too many clients. Get a list of those that might not come right. Package those up. And then we procrastinated for a long time. We needed one of the 2 that were on maternity to come back after that. It would mean working from home, but they were both key members of staff. You don't need both, depending on which one we take, depends on the business model, which one do you want.
We won't go into how you made that choice, but actually that choice kind of made itself, didn't it?
Yeah. I procrastinated over that.
Yeah. So this is pretty ballsy. You're basically deciding that you're starting a practice right from the very beginning again. You said, well, we can afford to lose 25%. Actually, if I remember at the time, you're like, yeah, we'll lose half of it. We don't need that much. This is about a lifestyle change. This is about enjoying it again. As you said, you made, the team redundant. You started again with one apprentice. You started to outsource in the UK and India to, fill the gaps, some for maternity permanently. And then, as you said, you had a package of clients that you thought, these want the face-to-face contact. They're not going to come down with me. Let's see if someone will buy it. So we're now 2 years on, aren't we, from that kind of moment? So where are you now?
We are up 6% in terms of both feedback and revenue. So we're end of April to end of April. So we were 6% up on our first full year from moving, which was just superb. One of the differences, South Manchester and North Manchester. South Manchester IT has a much bigger uptake. So we're signing a different client base. Signing bigger limited companies that are already zero QuickBooks, and we are losing handle with this small tax return work that we just don't want anymore. If we've lost a limited company clients and we have lost them, they did us such a big favor. They kind of stopped with us for the first 12 months to see how it went. Didn't like the fact that I wasn't in Haywood more than once a month, and then they've left in year 2. So even if you look back and think, Christ, how much am I going to lose? you don't lose it all at midnight on the day you move, which is lovely. So the limited companies that you tried your hardest to keep hold of, but at the end of the day, wanted a local accountant, they still got you over that first 12 months, which was nice. So knowing what I know now, I'd be a lot more relaxed.
And it's really interesting. So number one, you now walk to work.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how many pictures you've showed me of the walk to work and the thoughts you've had on the walk to work. So you've exchanged an 80 mile. Number two, you were really worried about, would I have a practice? And as you said, revenue stayed the same, but with better clients, nicer way of working, and you've rebuilt a team with a client base that works for you, as you said. And you say, I'm losing hand over fist my small tax return clients, but number one, they're the ones you didn't want anyway. Number two, you're replacing them with better clients. And I think there's a key point here is, had your growth expert really pushed you to plan this?
It's might have done every now and again. Yeah, every month for 20 minutes.
Yeah. Has it made a difference having the plan and seeing the certainty so you're not worrying about losing those small clients hand over fist?
Yes. Yeah. Because as you know, there are dark moments. And for me, that's when I have to be careful because the glass can tip to be.
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, dark moments are either when you get COVID, or as you say, you get moments where for a couple of months the black dog ascends and then your wife has a word with you.
Yes. Yes. Rainbows and butterflies come out.
And I think there's a really key point here is that this growing and scaling a practice has to be aligned with who you want and what you want. There is no point building a gold encrusted cage that traps you. Those 80 miles every day were killing you. Whilst there were some great clients that you worked with, it wasn't right. And the whole point you were building this was for your family's future, and you just weren't seeing them. And we talked about what was important for you, and that finally moved you and moved the office. And the interesting thing was a lot of people do this one leg in, one leg out. Whereas you're like, no, if we're going, we're going. We've sold the office, we've bought a new office. There's no way back. Absolutely committed to the moves. When we first met, you were very much like, no, I'm here with the apprentices model. I'm here to train and develop my own. It's not ethical to outsource. We've got a duty to people in the local area, blah, 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 blah. So what prompted you to do outsourcing then?
Growth, really. We were struggling for staff. During COVID, it hit us because we're a small practice in North Manchester. You've always been able to offer work directly with the partner, responsibility early on, plenty of interaction with clients. Problem is, post-COVID, everybody's offering work from home. So they're not now spending an hour 10, an hour 20 to get into Manchester. So they can sit at home and work from home 2-3 days a week. So one of the competitive advantages a small practice could offer, different anymore. So it was all about why come to us. We were using 3 colleges, the apprenticeship applications, poorer every intake, which was really disheartening. So to cater for the growth, seeing what others in the club had done, because I never, ever thought I'd be an outsourced person. I love it. It's brilliant. You know what you're going to get. You're not getting perfection. You have to work hard at it. But yeah, I like it. I'm a big.
So what have you actually learned from it then? I know that the accountancy world fits into, I wouldn't do it with outsourcing. Then you've got that it's not ethical, never go there. Then you've got the middle, which is often, well, I might try, or I did try and it didn't work for me. I'm not doing it again. So how did you move from skeptical through the learning journey to building a team out in, I think it's India, your team, that, you have a good relationship with?
Yeah. It helped having worked and lived in Dubai because a lot of the workers are either Indian or Filipino. So I had a nice understanding of their culture and where they're different from us, Western culture. And that's just different, no right or wrong. And it was just a case of get stuck in. One of our values is we just get stuff done. So we just piled in, didn't overly have a plan, just that confidence just to say, right, well, we've been around the block a few times with a small business owner. Whatever comes up, we'll just get it sorted. I had to improve the processes. I had to improve lines of communication, which me, for an accountant, I don't want a process that how to boil a kettle. You just go and boil a kettle. And so, I had to sort out the processes. Regular communication was key, which can be quite hard for me when I'm busy. And those were cultural shifts.
And yeah, and there was a really interesting thing, as you said, it's people don't do what you expect, they do what you inspect. So you
Yeah.
almost had to treat them like they're a young apprentice, need feedback on every job, they need the review points explaining to them. But if you do that enough and you've got the right people on your jobs, then they very quickly become a very valuable member of the team. But as you say, you've got to do that investment. You've got to treat them like they're a junior apprentice to start with, build up the relationship, make them expect that you are going to be heavily reviewing their work. Then, as you said, tweak the workflow based on what they were doing. As you said, you might have to go from instead of just make a cup of tea to get out the kettle, find the tea bag. Remember, we put the tea bag in before we put the milk in. The boiling water goes in first. You know, that level of detail. And we often think, don't we? We buy into outsourcing as a magical solution. 20 sets of accounts out of our water, out of our inbox, comes back a week later, and we've only got minor queries to sort. It's just not reality. We have to treat them as if they're a member of the team. So you said that you were considering selling the feedback. And I know we had a lot of conversations. You found the feedback, you decided what you were going to sell. Where did it go wrong?
Time issue. Everything was urgent. We only had 6 months to do absolutely everything. And that was sell one building, buy another, work out who we're going to make redundant, work on a financial plan. What does year one look like? Get the new office, get the IT in, get the signage up, which is still not up, by the way. And that's now a goal. Define success for 2025. We can grow the practice without having to put a sign above the door that says PS Accountant. We are a blank white, newly rendered building that just has PS Accountant 5A, so the postman and DPD.
Yeah, and that's a really good goal is that, you come from a background where the franchise was very much heavily geared on telemarketing, walk-in. Your previous Hayward office had peers accountants all over it. And you move that shift on. You don't want walk-ins, you want trusted referrals, you want clients who you want to work with. And there's a really key point. As a business owner, we think we're infallible, don't we? We can do this, we can do that, we can do this, we can do that. And we often have this massive project list. And I've been there. And the reality is there's too much. By the time you're over 2K, you've got to really prioritize your projects. And that's one of the big mistakes, isn't it, that accounting firm owners make, is that everything's urgent. But for you had to sell an office, you had to buy an office. And you also didn't want a big gap between closing one and opening one, because that would have cost you rent that you wanted. You then had to rebuild your team. So you brought on a good apprentice, but they were in the new office, so you needed to be there for them. So you had to sell the feedback, and I think that's a really good point. When you're selling a feedback, always think that it's going to take 3-4 times longer than you want to sell it.
We were time critical, and it was tough because although it was time critical for me, it didn't have to be a fire sale.
Yes, that's a really important point. As soon as the seller knows it's time critical, your multiplier is going down.
Yeah. So as soon as you get solicitors involved, you can either be really lucky or really unlucky. For whatever reason, paperwork wasn't flowing, and we got to the point where it was right. Well, we're not fire sailing it, right? Get the system books out, and what are the odds?
Yep.
Do some scenario planning. How much are you going to lose then? Well, I was going to give all that away, so fine, balls to it, take the lot, let's go.
And I think this is a really, really good point, that you've got to know the bigger picture. Because when you stared at that abyss and Sue got the bottle of champagne out and said, right, you're moving down here now, you knew what the worst thing could be was that you were, permanently struggling with long COVID, couldn't think, couldn't work, and you would be losing clients hand over fist. And so you knew what you were doing. And I think far too often we haven't considered all of the scenarios with these big changes. We fear the unknown, don't we? Well, what happens if this actually happens? How much better could it be? And I know we're talking a little bit about how do you get the courage to manage the changes, but how did you get the courage to go from, revenue, around about 390, you could have pushed forward, you could have found those replacements. You've got fairly exacting standards, let's be honest. I think it helped that your team are a few thousand miles away with your exacting standards, and you go through 2 people before they get the word. But not many people would turn their back on nearly 4K with your profit margin, set yourself, your wife and your son up for life. Not many people would turn their back on it and go, I can't do this anymore. Let's build it on my terms. How did you find that courage?
It comes down to who you are, doesn't it? I think Chris Evans' quote when he moved from Radio 2 to Virgin, he said, I'm not a mountain viewer, I'm a mountain climber. And I have to be busy. I have to be tinkering, doing stuff, building things. And you could see that 390 going to 500,000. I didn't want to go any higher than that. And if you mapped that out 2 to 3 years down the line, doing that traveling for the next 5, 10 years, it just didn't light a fire in your belly. Where if you thought, if we move it, so let's be honest, the nicer part of town, you can walk to work and back. So you soon begin to realize, well, if I'm walking to work, that extra time then I would have been commuting, I'm actually producing because nobody's in the office. It's all nice and quiet. The phones are not ringing. That's 45,000 a year just on me, extra production, not sat in the car.
Yeah.
Not really working any harder. I'm just swapping, sat in the car listening to business podcasts, sat in the office, working away, nice and quiet, 45 minutes before anybody gets in. That's not hard work.
No, and of course we're talking it's better environmentally, you're not paying for fuel, wear and tear on the car because, 80 miles a day on the car. So what's next for you? So if Sue was in the room and I was in the room, what would you say is the next step for you?
Balance more the lifestyle and defining what is success. I didn't overly get mega excited about taking up to 500,000, maintaining the profit margin, because realistically, financially, you're at a point where you're nice and comfortable. You have the holidays you want, cars you want, in reason. And the next leap for me, anyway, is the big leap. Not that I want it, but it's the boats and the car. What's another 50, 70 grand? Do any more. Don't need 50 to 70 grand. More. Do anything. It's just an incremental. That's nice. Whereas in 15 years of running this, never had a fortnight's holiday because the practice has always been about me. So another key success, apart from putting the sign up, is next year in August, we are having fortnight's holiday. I am not taking the laptop. I will not answer calls. And we've got to have the systems and structure in place to be able to manage that. And at the moment, I don't because I've worked too much in the business.
And it's interesting, actually, in this last year, you've probably taken more holidays than you've ever done.
Yeah.
Maybe something to do with your wife and your growth expert telling you a few things.
Oh, yes. There's a big wide world out there. Got to stop every now and again, go and have a look.
I know. And there's a certain sport that drives around on very quick cycles that you quite like, particularly when the Tour de France is on, is switching off the afternoon work to watch people cycle around for ups. And I think, if I'm to summarize your journey, that big change that you made was all about stopping doing what you thought you should be doing and really looking at, well, what does happiness mean for me? What does success mean for me? And we've had long, long chats about it, grow, not grow, legacy, not legacy. What does that mean? And I think it's still a journey and it's always going to be a journey. And I think for anybody listening to this is when you think it can't get any worse and you're staring into the abyss, you've got to ask yourself, what are the options? Would it be really bad? And actually choose your heart.
Yeah. And what COVID has taught me is got to plan for downside.
Yeah. Yeah, you and me both. You and me both. We've both been through that journey. You had COVID. I didn't get COVID. I've just got a body that keeps giving up on me. So there's, it's really good to tell that story, real story of a practice nearly on K, which you literally broke, pressed the nuclear button, have rebuilt in 18 months to exactly the same figures and more profitable with better enjoyment.
Not as tired.
I know. But it's amazing what you can do when you've got people keeping you accountable, keeping you honest, and are there to help you when you think, I'm not sure I can do this.
That was one of the big things, being in something like AGC. People have been there to a certain degree, not exactly like for like, so that's not what the club's about. But yeah, no, people have been in there. And it's good, it's satisfying.
Well, thank you very much for your time. And I will speak with you soon.